There are lonelinesses that scream louder than any crowd, and there are abandonments that happen not when people leave, but when they simply choose not to show up. I buried my husband alone. Neither my son, nor my daughter, nor a single grandchild showed up. Only me, standing beside his coffin while the cold November wind blew through the chapel courtyard in Meridian, Mississippi, as if even the weather couldn't bear to stay. The funeral director seemed uncomfortable, his eyes alternating between the empty seats and my face. He cleared his throat once, then again. "Ma'am, would you like us to wait a few more minutes?" "No," I told him to begin. "Start now." James wouldn't want any delay. James hated being late. He was punctual even in his final days, taking his medication according to the clock, watching the evening news at 6 o'clock sharp, arranging his slippers side by side before bed. A man of habit, a man of dignity, and now a man being buried alone. But what no one but me knew, what I would only discover 3 days later, was that James had kept something that would change everything. Something that would reveal who truly deserved to be beside that coffin. If you stay until the end of this story, you'll discover how a 79-year-old woman transformed her own children's betrayal into the greatest lesson in dignity they could ever receive. Subscribe to the channel now, because this story will make you rethink what family, loyalty, and the true value of love mean. I sat in the front row of the chapel, the 5 chairs around me empty like broken promises. The pastor recited the scriptures without conviction. He barely knew James, barely knew that this man had built half the houses in that neighborhood with his own hands, that he had taught dozens of boys to fix cars, that he had been a deacon in the church for 40 years. The flowers were too bright, the coffin too polished. I couldn't stop thinking about how James would have given that smile of his, that smile that said, "Woman, you're doing too much," and then frowned, asking where the hell the children were. Where were they? The message had arrived that morning. Our son Marcus sent a curt, unenthusiastic sentence. "Sorry, Mama. Something came up. Can't make it." No explanation. No "I love you." Nothing. I imagined him in his office in Atlanta, or more likely on a golf course with clients, pretending that his father's death was just a minor inconvenience in a busy schedule. Our daughter Naomi didn't even send a message. She left a voicemail 2 days before, her voice as light as a spring breeze. "Mama, I really can't cancel my nail appointment, and you know how anxious I get about rescheduling. Tell Daddy I'll visit next week." Next week? As if that were possible. As if the dead would wait. Have you ever felt completely alone, even when surrounded by family? Have you ever discovered that the people you raised, whom you loved more than life itself, can't give you 2 hours of their time? After the service, I walked alone behind the pallbearers. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't grieving. I had been grieving for months, ever since the cancer diagnosis came. But because there's a kind of sadness so profound that it stays immobile inside you, like an anchor. And that day, I was already buried beneath it. The cemetery was almost deserted. An old caretaker watched from afar, his hand resting on a shovel. The coffin was lowered. Prayers were whispered. Dust met the wood. The wood would meet the silence. I stood there for a while after the others left. My heels sank slightly into the earth, and I felt the wind brush against my coat. The gravestone would be put up later. For now, just a simple plaque with James's name. James Washington, beloved husband, father, forgotten. The word stuck in my mind like a pebble in my shoe. Forgotten. Forgotten. Back home, the silence was deafening. His armchair remained untouched, his slippers side by side, the TV remote where he'd last left it. I stared at it for a long time. Then I walked to the kitchen, opened a bottle of wine, a good one, from the cupboard I always kept for guests, and poured myself a glass. I picked up my phone and opened Instagram. I don't usually scroll, but something told me to take a look. Naomi's profile was public, of course. 2 hours earlier, she had posted a photo of herself with 3 friends, drinks in hand, wide smiles. Caption: "Girls' brunch, bottomless mimosas, living our best lives." Marcus had also posted a photo of the 9th hole on the golf course, his new club gleaming in the sun, killer swing, perfect weather, deals closed. I stared at the screen until it blurred. Then I hung up the phone, took another sip of wine, and looked at the photo on the wall. James and I on our 40th wedding anniversary, standing beside the rose bushes he had planted with his own hands. They used to bloom red. Now they were bare. Tomorrow, I thought, I'll call the lawyer. I'll make changes quietly, with the same dignity James lived with. Because if I was the only one to show up for his final farewell, I would be the only one to carry out his final wish, and my own. That night, I sat alone in our kitchen, the same room where James used to peel apples with the precision of a surgeon, cutting them into perfect crescents and arranging them on a plate. He always offered me the best piece, the one with the most sunshine, he would call it. Now the fruit bowl lay untouched, a few overripe pears sagging beneath their own skin. The silence was nothing new. James had left almost 2 weeks before the funeral, and those days had already begun to teach me the shape of loneliness. But that night it pressed harder, louder, more cruelly. I couldn't stop thinking about the empty chairs, about Naomi's message, or rather, her absence. I had raised a daughter who could watch her father being brought down to earth from the comfort of a brunch table. Had I failed her? Or had she failed something within herself that could no longer be recovered? Marcus's message was still there. No punctuation, no warmth, just a flat, black and white rejection. Something came up. Was it shame? Indifference? Or that kind of casual cruelty you don't even recognize until it's too late? I served another glass of wine, not of sadness, but of clarity. I walked down the hall to our room and opened the top drawer of James's desk. His things were still organized the same way: envelopes, spare keys, an old stamp album. I reached behind the files and pulled out the folder I kept hidden behind everything. Thin, neat, sealed with a rubber band. It was tagged, Estate. Inside, they had copies of our will, a list of beneficiaries, our instructions on what should happen to the house, the car, the bills, even the antique watch that James's grandfather had brought from Dublin, Ireland. Everything had been prepared and reviewed by our lawyer 2 years ago, with love and foresight. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the file. Marcus was listed as a co-beneficiary of the main investment account, the one that had nearly $300,000 accumulated over a lifetime of hard work and frugal choices. He and Naomi were both included in the house transfer clause. Even the lake cabin, the one they never visited anymore but always inquired about when taxes were due, was destined for them. I held the pages in my hands, my fingers trembling. Not from age, from something deeper. Betrayal has a pulse, and mine was pounding in my ears. I got up and walked to the closet, pulling out a storage box. Inside were all the old photos, family gatherings, birthdays, holidays, James holding the children when they were little, me on the balcony laughing, Naomi tugging at my sleeve, Marcus sleeping in James's lap, a book lying open on his chest. We were a family once, and perhaps I was too naive to see how far that family had drifted apart. Perhaps love doesn't erode in a storm. Perhaps it fades like wallpaper in the sun, quietly, until one day you no longer recognize the pattern. I found a photo of James and Marcus fishing. Marcus must have been about 12 years old. James had his arm around him, pointing at something in the water, his smile full and gentle. That man deserved more than an empty chapel. I put the photo back. Then I picked up my phone. It was almost midnight, but I didn't care. I called Thomas Fields, our lawyer. It went to voicemail, as expected. I left a message anyway. Thomas, it's Loretta Washington. I need to revise my will urgently. Call me in the morning. I ended the call and stood for a long moment by the window. The moonlight touched the tops of the rose bushes outside. They had withered since James left, not through neglect, but as if in solidarity. I knew I should prune them, give them space to bloom again. But not that night. That night, I let the old petals fall. Tomorrow, I would start cutting away what no longer belonged there. Have you ever had to make a decision that you knew would change everything? A decision that people would call cruel, but deep down in your heart, you knew was the only right thing to do? The lawyer's office smelled of old books and eucalyptus polish, the kind of place where time seemed dense and the silence had a particular weight. Thomas Fields had known James and me for over 30 years. He handled our first mortgage, James's business license, the deed to the lake cabin, and eventually, our estate plan. Reliable, accurate, and, like me, a little tired of people who only smiled when they wanted something. He looked up from the desk when I came in, rising from his chair with a slightly surprised expression. "Loretta," he said, buttoning his jacket. "You're here early." "It couldn't wait," I replied, settling into the leather chair opposite him. My coat still smelled faintly of the garden. I had cut back the dead roses that morning, early, before breakfast. Pruning always calmed me. There was something honest about cutting back what no longer served its purpose. "I got your message, Thomas dice, sentando. You said you want to revise your will?" "Yes, Eudice. Marcus and Naomi are to be removed entirely." He paused, not in shock, but cautiously. "Are you sure?" Olhei nos olhos dele. "I buried my husband alone. Our children didn't come. Not a call, not a flower. They was busy." I calmly placed my hands on the table. "They don't deserve a dime. Thomas deu uma ceno lento. Then we'll draft a full amendment. You want them removed from every provision?" "Yes. The accounts, the house, the cabin, everything." "Understood." He opened a nice notepad and began typing in neat lines. "Do you want to redirect the assets to someone else?" I thought of Isaiah, my grandson, Naomi's son, the only one who visited without needing anything, who mowed my lawn in July not because I was asked, but because he said, "Grandma, you shouldn't be out here sweating like this." Who brought books from the library and asked my opinion about them? Who once said, "Grandma, I like talking to you more than kids my age." Respire fundo. Yes, Eudice. I'd like to set up a trust for Isaiah. I want him to have the house, the cabin, and the remainder of the estate. I want it structured carefully, protected from his parents' reach. "That can be arranged," Thomas disse como tipo de profissionalismo seco que eu apreciava. "We'll create an irrevocable trust in Isaiah's name. He won't have full access until he's 30, unless for education or medical expenses. Does that sound acceptable?" It sounds perfect. We spent the next hour reviewing details, paper after paper, clause after clause. I didn't waver. When you've buried your husband with your own hands and stood beside an open grave with no child in sight, a stack of legal documents doesn't scare you. Nothing trivial can reach you after that. As we neared the end, Thomas looked up at the desk again. "Loretta, I gotta say, this ain't something many people your age do so cleanly. Most want to forgive, keep the peace." "I kept the peace for 79 years, Eudice quietament, and it buried me long before it buried James." He asked no more questions. When I left the office, the sun was just beginning to stretch across the sidewalk. I stood there for a moment, letting the October air wash over my face. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry anymore either. I was simply done. Ready to stop expecting my children to be people they never intended to be. Ready to stop confusing duty with love. Ready to stop writing checks with my heart and expecting anything in return but silence. My footsteps echoed as I walked back to the car. The leather seat felt warmer than usual. I sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, watching people hurry past on the street. A woman walked by with her daughter, holding hands, sharing a laugh. I didn't envy them. I just noticed the scene, like an old song I used to like but didn't play anymore. That night, I slept without the TV on, without a book, without James's old sweater folded beside me as it had been since the hospital. The silence was still there, but it didn't hurt, not anymore. Have you ever reached a point where peace mattered more than pleasing others? Where you finally chose yourself, even knowing that people would call you selfish? The filing cabinet in the hallway had 3 drawers, all labeled in James's firm handwriting in block letters: house, taxes, family. The last one was mine. I opened it slowly, the metal groaning slightly, as if reluctant to reveal its ghosts. Inside, folders upon folders, receipts, copies of checks, bank letters, old Christmas cards tucked between loan agreements. I had kept everything, not out of obsession, but because I believed in clarity. Paper doesn't lie, and that drawer contained enough truth to set a forest ablaze. I sat at the kitchen table and placed the labeled folder. Marcus, Education and Business, on one side, and I opened Naomi, Home and Lifestyle. The handwriting was mine. Neater years ago, still legible now. I started reading $15,000, check dated 2003, Naomi's wedding. "It's a small ceremony, Mama. We just want a nice venue." That venue had chandeliers, lobster, and a string quartet. $7,800, Transferencia in 2007. The roof's leaking, mama. The baby's crib got soaked. I paid within an hour. $12,000 in 2011, new braces for Isaiah, $5,000 in 2013. He wanna go to summer robotics camp. It's a big deal, mama. A year later, when Naomi called crying because her husband had been fired, I sent her another $20,000. No questions asked. You always save us. Ila Susuro, no telephone. We don't know what we'd do without you. I believed her. Marcus's dough was thicker. $25,000, seed money for a guaranteed startup that went bankrupt in less than 6 months. James warned me not to send it. I sent it anyway. A used car, a down payment on a house, 3 semesters of graduate school. I paid the hospital bills when his second daughter was born. I paid the insurance when his first daughter broke her arm. When Marcus fell behind on his taxes, I wrote him a check and didn't tell anyone. Looking at everything now, line by line, I wondered when exactly I had become their safety net. Or maybe it had always been that way, and I was simply too good at getting caught up in their traps. Not once did they refuse my help. But they had refused to come and say goodbye to their father, and that wasn't something paper could fix. I put the files back in the cabinet, except for one. I kept the marked envelope, Isaiah. Inside was a note he wrote when he was 11 years old. A sloppy pencil, folded in half. Grandma Loretta, thank you for teaching me how to make pancakes. I think you are very wise and funny. One day I will take care of you like you take care of me. I held the paper for a long time. He was 19 now. I didn't know if he remembered writing that letter or if it still meant anything to him, but it meant something to me. I had planned to be fair, to divide things equally. That's what people say, right? Be fair. Don't play favorites. But what if justice didn't mean equality? What if justice meant leaving your legacy to the only person who saw you not as a bank, but as a human being? James Kostumava Dizer. Legacy ain't what you leave. It's who you leave it to. I used to think he meant financially. Now I knew that wasn't true. Have you ever held on to something for years thinking it was love, when in reality it was just evidence of your own neglect of yourself? The connection came one afternoon, a voice I hadn't heard in months. Soft, almost hesitant. Grandma? Isaiah. I closed the ledger in front of me. I was reviewing utility bills, getting ready to close some accounts at the lake cabin, the one Marcus never used, but always called the asset. It was no longer an asset. Not to him. Hello, baby, I said, careful to keep my voice steady. Everything all right? Uma pausa. Então, I heard about Grandpa. I'm sorry I ain't call sooner. I waited. Not because I wanted to punish him, but because I needed to hear if his next words were genuine. I ain't know he passed until 2 days ago, Isaiah disse rapidamente. Mama never told me. She said he was sick, but not that he was gone. Sente bem quieta. He passed almost 3 weeks ago, Isaiah. I know, he whispered. I'm so sorry. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I heard something in his silence. Not exactly guilt, but grief. The real kind. The kind you can't fake. I want to come see you, ela accrescentou. If that's okay. Exhalé. Of course it's okay. He arrived an hour later, taller than I remembered, slightly unshaven, smelling faintly of clean clothes and stress. He hugged me the way young people do when they're not sure if they're still welcome. A slightly uncertain embrace, then a full one when he realizes you're not pulling away. I didn't walk away. We sat in the living room. I served him lemonade, and he looked around as if the house were both familiar and different at the same time. That's what grief feels like, I suppose. You recognize everything, but you no longer belong to the same world. I missed his funeral, ele disse, and I'll never forgive myself for that. You wasn't the one who chose to miss it, you disse gentilmente. He looked at me then. He really looked. Did Mama really not come? I nodded once. He said nothing, only looked at the coaster under his glass, running his thumb along the worn rim. She told me they had work, ela disse depois de tempo, that it was handled. I should have known better. You know now. I want to do something, he said, sitting up straighter. For him, for you, anything. You doing it, you disse. You here. He seemed unconvinced. I hesitated, then got up and came back with a manila envelope. Inside were the trust papers, unsigned, unfiled, but real. I hadn't taken them to the bank yet. I wanted to see Isaiah's face first. I handed him the folder. He opened it, his eyebrows furrowing, read the first few lines, and then looked at me, alarmed. "Grandma, what is this?" "My plan," I said simply. This is everything. The house, the cabin, the savings accounts? Yes, but why me? A vos de la rachu. Why not Mama or Uncle Marcus? I could have said many things. I could have spoken about their absence, their cruelty, the parties and apologies. But I chose a different truth, because you the only one who came back without being called. He looked at the papers, then carefully placed them as if afraid of breaking something. "I don't know what to say," Ella murmuró. "You don't gotta say nothing. Just remember who you are, and remember what love looks like when it's real." His eyes were wet now. He wiped them with his sleeve the way he used to when he was a boy, not wanting anyone to see that he was crying. We sat there for a long time, not talking, just being. The way James and I used to sit at night, two people who didn't need to fill the air with sound to feel close. As I was leaving, Isaiah turned to me at the door. "If I come over next weekend, could we make pancakes again?" He smiled, full and gentle, for the first time in days. "We'll even use the good syrup. Have you ever discovered that the person you least expected was the only one who truly cared? That true love doesn't shout, but appears quietly, consistently, without asking for anything in return." Naomi showed up the next morning. I knew she was coming, not because she missed me, not because she needed comfort, but because I had stopped replying to her messages. She arrived unannounced, the tires of her black SUV stomping through the gravel too quickly, as if she were late for something more important. She didn't knock. She just went in as she always did, as if the house still belonged to her in some invisible way. "Mama," she said, dropping her oversized bag on the hallway table. "I've been trying to reach you." I didn't get up. I was folding clothes slowly, deliberately, gathering socks as if it were the most important task in the world. "I've been busy," I said. She gave a humorless little laugh. "Busy with what?" I didn't reply. She walked to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water without asking, and leaned against the counter as if she owned the walls. "So, Ila dice, is it true?" I looked at her. "What are you referring to?" She tapped her nails against the glass. "Isaiah said you are changing your will." I finished folding a shirt and carefully placed it in the basket. "I am. To exclude me and Marcus?" "Yes." Naomi riu, curto, amargo. "Are you serious? After everything we done for you? Everything you done?" "Olhei pra ela agora, a dobra concluída, mãos quietas." "You ain't come to your father's funeral, Naomi. You ain't send flowers. You ain't call. You ain't even ask." "I had an appointment." "Yes, you cortei ela. Your nails. And then brunch. I saw the photos." She blinked but didn't deny it. "You want to talk about what you done for me? Continue. You sent me grocery lists, bills, school payments, mortgage requests, and I paid them, quietly, without asking for nothing. That's what family do, right? Help each other? That's what family's supposed to do," Ayla respondeu. "No, you disse suavemente. That's what mothers do. And I did. For years." She remained silent. "Your father built this home with his bare hands. He ain't have much, but he had pride. He taught you that respect is measured in actions, not words. And you couldn't give him 2 hours for a goodbye. That ain't fair." "Fair?" Minha voz era calma, mais cortante. "You want to know what ain't fair? I spent the last 20 years giving without receiving. I buried my husband alone. I sat beside his grave and waited for my children. They never came. That ain't just like that. That's a lifetime." She crossed her arms, trying to appear composed, but her mouth was tight. "So you're really cutting us out, just like that, and giving everything to Isaiah?" She laughed again, this time more sharply. "He's a kid. What does he know about responsibility? He know how to show up." The silence that followed was dense. I thought she was going to cry. I thought she was going to scream. Instead, she grabbed her purse. "Well," she said, adjusting her sunglasses, "I hope this makes you feel powerful." "No," I said calmly. "It makes me feel peaceful." She left without another word. I waited until I heard the car drive away before picking up the trust papers from the dining table and placing them next to the folded laundry. Later that night, I found a letter on the doorstep. No stamp, no envelope, just crumpled and stained paper. You don't understand what it's like to balance everything. We tried our best. Maybe we failed, but cutting us out like this ain't the answer. I read it twice, then folded it in half and put it in the marked drawer. Miscellaneous. Because that's what it was now. Just another piece of paper. Too late. Too little. Have you ever been called cruel for finally choosing yourself? Have you ever been accused of selfishness for stopping sacrificing yourself for people who never said thank you? Marcus came the next day. He didn't barge in like Naomi. He knocked twice, waited, and knocked again. I opened the door slowly, already knowing he wouldn't come alone. And he didn't. Behind him was Vanessa, his wife, wearing her usual stiff smile and a scarf that was far too expensive for the weather. She waved at me as if I were a stranger she'd agreed to meet as a favor. "Mama," Marcus said, his voice calm and rehearsed. "Can we come in?" I stepped away. He looked around the house like someone walking through a museum of a life he no longer recognized. I led them to the living room. They didn't take off their coats. "I heard from Naomi, Eli Comiso, and from Isaiah." "I imagine you did." He cleared his throat. "I think there's been some confusion." I said nothing. Vanessa crossed her legs delicately, the diamonds on her finger catching the afternoon light. "Try again. We understand this is a difficult time, Loretta. Emotions run high after a loss." I looked at her. "You're not coming to his funeral either. Ella Piscu. I had a client dinner. Very important deal. International. Marcus Simexio. Mama, listen. I should have called. I should have come. But I ain't know how to—" "No," you interrompi. "You thought maybe if you ignored it long enough, it would become somebody else's grief." He looked away. "I waited," continuing. "I sat in a chapel, built by your father's hands, alone, while they lowered him into the ground. And not one of y'all showed up." Marcus opened his mouth, but Vanessa placed her hand on his knee. A signal. Let her speak. "We understand you upset, Iladis, and it's your right to change your will. But let's be reasonable. Isaiah is a child. He 19. Yes, but he not experienced. He don't know how to handle a trust or manage property. He could be manipulated." I raised an eyebrow. "By whom?" Vanessa non vacillò. "By people who know he inherited something valuable. Like you, I thought." Marcus tentò de novo. "Mama, I know I disappointed you. I know I ain't been the best son. But you gotta admit, this a bit extreme." "No," you disse suavemente. "What's extreme is abandoning your father. What's extreme is living your life like the people who raised you is disposable. Elle engoliu secco. So that's it. You just cutting us off. You cut yourselves off. I'm just acknowledging the fact." Vanessa levantò. "This could get complicated, Loretta. Legally. Encontré o olhar dela." "It won't. The paperwork clean. My lawyer good." And I had time to think. Marcus seemed older than I remembered, thinner at the temples, his eyes empty. "I thought you forgave people." "I do, Eudice. But forgiveness don't mean access." They didn't argue after that. They stood up, thanked them politely, and left. It was only after the door closed that I felt the trembling in my hands. It wasn't fear. It wasn't doubt. It was liberation. I sat by the window for a long time, watching the last light bleed from the sky. The rose bushes were almost bare now. Winter was near. James is said to have remarked, "They'll bloom again, and they would flourish, but not for everyone." The bank smelled of lemon cleaner and quiet power, the kind of place where old money moves slowly and nobody raises their voice. I hadn't been there in almost a year, but they remembered me. "Mrs. Washington," the receptionist said, standing up immediately. "Mr. Jenkins will be right with you." I nodded politely and waited near the high windows overlooking Main Street. Outside, people hurried about their business, heads bowed, busy. Inside, the world seemed still, as if something important was always about to happen. Mr. Jenkins, Richard, came out a minute later, sharp as ever in his tailored suit. He looked like someone who had never spilled coffee in his life. "Loretta," he greeted warmly, shaking my hand. "I was surprised by your message." "Good," I said. "Surprise is good." He smiled uncertainly and led me to his office. Glass walls, a walnut desk, a single framed photo of his dog. James would have liked that. An honest face in a room full of finances. I understand you want to make some changes, he said, opening my account file. I already made them, respond I. I'm here to ensure they carried through without delay. He looked at the notes, eyebrows rising as he read. You revoked all linked transfers, removed Marcus and Naomi as beneficiaries, and established an irrevocable trust in Isaiah's name. That's a significant shift. I'm a significant woman, I said. Elle riu. Yes, you are. Me incline levemente pour French. I want safeguards, Richard. Ironclad. No appeals. No family representatives twisting his arm 5 years from now when they realize what they lost. We can structure the trust to prevent that. The disbursements will be controlled, contingent on educational use, housing, or health care until he's 30. After that, full access, but still protected. Would you like a co-trustee? No, Eudice. Isaiah can have a financial advisor if he want one, but the decisions is his. I trust him more than I trust lawyers. It wasn't an insult directed at Richard, just the truth. He adjusted his glasses. You understand this can't be undone easily. I don't want it undone. We went through it all. Signatures, dates, final confirmations. It felt like I was building something. Not a house, not a business. Something quieter, stronger. A boundary that wouldn't bend with guilt or soften with time. Antes de eu sair, Richard juntou as mãos na mesa. Loretta, if I may ask, and you can absolutely tell me it's none of my business, but are you doing this out of anger? I considered the question. No, I said. I'm doing it out of clarity. He nodded slowly. That's rare. No, I said again, more gently this time. It's just late. When I stepped out into the afternoon sun, it felt different. Cleaner somehow. Lighter. Across the street was a coffee shop that James and I used to visit after business. I hadn't been there in years. The place had changed, younger staff, louder music, but I went in anyway and ordered a cappuccino. I sat by the window watching the street. A woman in her 30s walked by, pushing a baby carriage, her coat flapping open in the wind. She seemed tired, determined, familiar. I drank my coffee slowly. No phone in hand, no urgency. Just a cup, a chair, a whole hour that belonged to no one but me. They always said this phase of life would be quiet. They didn't say how loud the peace could seem. Have you ever had a moment where you finally felt you did the right thing? Where peace didn't come with applause or validation, but simply settled quietly inside you like a whisper saying, you are free now. Lorraine Campbell lived 2 houses down and had lived there since 1972. She and I weren't the kind of women who called themselves best friends, but we shared enough cups of tea and exchanged enough knowing glances over the fences that the silence between us had become a kind of language. She knocked around 5, carrying a tin of lemon biscuits and her usual gentle curiosity. I saw Marcus's car here yesterday, Ila disse assim que abria a porta. He bring flowers or just excuses? Neither, I said, stepping aside to let her in. He brought his wife and a suit. Oh, she said, and that single word was drenched in judgment. We sat in the living room and I served her tea, chamomile for her, strong black tea for myself. She placed the tin between us on the coffee table and didn't open it yet. She waited. I told them, Eudice, everything, that they out of the will, that Isaiah the only one who ever came back without being asked. Lorraine let out a long breath. About damn time. I looked at her. I'm sorry, Loretta, ela disse, suavizando. But I've been watching you chase the approval for years, babysitting when you had your own doctor's appointments, writing checks while they took cruises, smiling when they forgot birthdays. I kept thinking, she gon' snap one day. And thank God you finally did. I ain't snap, Eudice. I peeled back everything that wasn't love. Lorraine Suriu, better phrased. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional gusts of wind outside. Autumn was beginning to settle in, the kind of autumn that smelled of old leaves and the edge of something ending. Do you regret it? She eventually asked. Balancé a cabeza. I regret not doing it sooner. She finally opened the tin. The cookies were perfect, crispy edges sprinkled with sugar, buttery and soft in the middle. Each of them took one and chewed thoughtfully. You know, Ila disse, my niece tried to get me to sell this house last spring, said it was too much for me, that I should move to one of them senior villas near the lake. Everything done for you, Auntie, she said. laundry, meals, even group outings. And what you say? I said I'd rather die in a house full of chipped mugs and my own silence than live in a place that smelled like bleach and other people's boredom. I laughed, a small, genuine laugh that came from somewhere solid. Lorraine C. Inclino, you and me, we come from a generation that know what endurance cost. We wore our spines down raising people who think love is measured in gifts and gratitude is optional. Absent. You ain't cruel, Loretta, Alla accrescento. They gon' say you are. They gon' whisper about how she cut off her own children. But what they won't say is that you was also the one who kept them afloat through every storm, even when they ain't bothered to ask if you was drowning. I blinked hard, but nothing fell. We talked for another hour about her garden, the state of the neighborhood, and the squirrels chewing on her gutter again. When she left, I hugged her longer than usual. That night, I didn't turn on the television. I pulled out an old letter that James had written to me during his first business trip, tucked away in a drawer I hadn't opened in years. Loretta, this house ain't never empty with you in it. You the roof, the floorboards, and the lock on the door. Even when it feel like nobody see you, I do. I read it 3 times before sliding it back into the envelope. The house was quiet, but not empty. Not anymore. It started with a walk, a simple, unremarkable act. But for me, it was the first one I'd done without a reason connected to another person. Not to pick up medicine, not to carry a saucepan, not to return a plate I hadn't asked to borrow. I just wanted to go for a walk. The morning was cool, not cold. The kind of air that sharpens your lungs but doesn't bite your skin. I wore James's old windbreaker, a size too big, worn at the cuffs, and felt strangely comforted by its weight. I walked slowly through the neighborhood, not like someone exercising, but like someone remembering what still belongs to it. In the park, I sat on a bench under the old oak tree, the one that had cracked in a storm in '99. It still leaned slightly, stubborn and alive. Across the path, 2 young mothers were pushing strollers, chatting about sleep training and preschool. They didn't look at me, and I didn't care. I was no longer part of their world. I didn't want to be. 3 months have passed since the funeral. 3 months since I signed the papers. And in that time, something miraculous happened. Not in the newspapers, not on social media, but here, in this house, in this garden, in this heart that had forgotten what it was like to feel peace. Isaiah had begun renovating the porch. Then came the roof. Then the garden. He wasn't doing it because he was obligated. He was doing it because he wanted to, because he saw value in what James had built, because he understood that legacy isn't about money, it's about memory, work, love. He brought friends over once, young people from church, some from college. They spent Saturday painting the fence, planting new rose bushes, and fixing the gutter. Lorraine showed up with lemonade and cookies. Look at this, Ila Susaropramin. Look at what you started. I didn't start anything, I thought. I just stopped preventing it. That night, Isaiah and I sat on the porch, the new one, the one he had built with his own hands. Grandma, Elidis, I've been thinking, what if we open this place up sometimes? Not all the time, but like for people who need a place to heal, to remember what home feel like. I looked at him. At the man he was becoming, at the legacy he was choosing to carry on. Your grandfather would love that, Ella Sariu. Then let's do it. In his name. In yours. And so it began. Not all at once, not perfectly, but slowly, steadily, with purpose. The James and Loretta Washington House, a place where people came not to forget the pain, but to remember that after the pain comes something stronger. Peace, purpose, belonging. Marcus and Naomi never came back. I heard from acquaintances that they told their version of events, where I was the cruel villain, the ungrateful mother who abandoned her own children. I let them tell their story, because truth doesn't need defenders. It simply stands on its own 2 feet. And me? I stood up too, with Isaiah, with Lorraine, with the memory of James, with a dignity that no one could take away from me, because I finally learned that dignity is not given, it is chosen. Every morning, I wake up in this house that James built. I have my coffee on the porch that Isaiah renovated, and I give thanks, not for what I lost, but for what I finally found, myself. If this story touched your heart, Share it with someone who needs to know that it's never too late to choose peace. It's never too late to choose dignity. It's never too late to make a choice. Subscribe to the Grandma's Diaries channel and turn on notifications for more stories that remind us that the true legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's who you become in the process of leaving it. In the comments, tell us, have you ever had to make a difficult choice between keeping the peace and maintaining your dignity? What was it like? Your story could inspire someone today. In the next story from Grandma's Diaries, an 82-year-old woman receives a letter from a lawyer. Inside, a photo of her at age 23, holding a baby she swore she never had. Dear Mrs. Patterson, my name is Michael. I'm 59 years old. And according to this DNA test, you're my biological mother. But you told everyone you never had children. So I have one question: who am I? And why did you erase me? There are secrets that aren't kept to protect you. They're kept to protect everyone around you. And when those secrets finally come out, they don't just destroy one life, they rewrite entire stories. The baby she never had. Next story from Grandma's Diaries. Because there are truths so profound that it takes a lifetime for them to surface. And when they do, they change everything. See you soon. And remember, every story is a thread, every memory an embroidery in time.